Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 7 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm glad that you're with me, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Remember that you can find this podcast on your favorite podcast hosting site. Just search A Yank on the Footy. You can also reach me at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com, as well as yank_on Twitter, and A Yank on the Footy on Instagram and on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your ideas for future shows, and if you have a story to tell, I would certainly love to hear from you and possibly set up a discussion where we could get you on the air talking about your views on the game that we all love. I think you're in for a treat with this episode. This gentleman is somebody that I had spent a lot of time talking to online as I was getting my podcast up and running. He was very supportive, and he has a wonderful, fun story to tell about footy, a slightly different perspective from one of my earlier interviews because he's an American who's a fan of the game, so we have that in common. So sit back and enjoy my interview here with episode 7. And I would love it if you would consider sharing my podcast with your friends, especially those who love footy, but also those people who are not fans of the game, because that's one of the goals of this podcast, is to get more people excited about the game of Australian football, because it is such a dynamic game. Sit back and relax, ladies and gents. Well, if you're driving, don't relax too much, but I hope you enjoy episode 7 of A Yank on the Footy. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 7 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm pleased to have with me someone who is arguably the biggest Western Bulldogs fan on the East Coast of the United States. He's originally from Norway, works as a public service employee in Florida. I'm really wondering which weather he likes better. I'm not sure if he's a big fan of the snow or not. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Frode Jurnhart to the podcast. Frode, thanks for coming on board. Thanks for being patient with me while I had to do a little bit of work on the audio here as we got started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, hey, how's it going? Well, yeah, I'm not sure about the snow. It's fun to play in, but I wouldn't want to work in it, that's for sure. I'll take winters in Florida are nice, absolutely. The summertime, I'm not so sure about.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, you know, you and I have chatted back and forth kind of ever since I began posting online that I was going to get this podcast up and running, and I started out, you know, a month or two before it went live, you know, and you and I began chatting about all sorts of different things related to footy, and it's great to actually talk to you in person. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, what is it that brought you to the United States, coming from Norway?
Well, when I was a kid, my mom met a retired New York City police officer when she was visiting her sister in Brooklyn, New York. You know, they got together, and he loved it in Norway, but at that time there was no satellite TV available, and he just could not live without American football. He was a huge Jets fan. So we moved to New York City when I was 10 years old, and he taught me the rules of American football in great detail. And I played a few years before moving to Florida. I still sometimes wonder what would have happened if my mom had married an Australian instead, though. Maybe I would have played a different game.
What position did you play? Because I've seen your picture online. You look like a pretty solid individual. I'm gonna guess you were playing offensive guard.
I was too slow to be a pulling guard. I was tackle, both defense and offense.
Okay.
Yeah. I was pretty big for my age, but so that meant I played in a bigger age bracket, and I got some schooling on that too.
So, you know, this is a podcast about footy, so we have to dive right in and say, just how in the heck did you discover this game? Because we've all got our stories.
Well, footy's pretty much my favorite subject to talk about, so I'm excited about that. I guess the first time I ever discovered it was a book that my dad had. He was an avid reader, and he had this book called Rules of the Game. I still have it, although it's pretty much falling apart. I read it so many times as a kid. The book talks about all these games, different sports from around the world. Australian rules football was in there, and almost positive that's the first time I ever heard of this footy from down under. Then I used to watch a few games at middle of the night on ESPN, just like many other people I did who discovered footy. Didn't really know, who the teams were or anything like that. There was no internet resource to learn that kind of stuff. But the only thing I do remember from it were these strange lab coats and goofy hats that the goal umpires wore back then. Obviously they don't wear them anymore.
Yeah, the guys in the fedoras and the white lab coats, arguably have to be the best dressed officials in the game. And I don't know. I guess I never paid close enough attention. The umpires that were actually on the field, what were they wearing at that time? I don't even remember.
I don't either.
Somebody.
I don't remember the it being as different as what the goal umpires were.
Yeah. Somebody leave me a note on my social media and let me know what the umpires were wearing during that time. I don't think they were all running around in lab coats, because that would have looked like a Monty Python episode, I think. So, as you're watching this game really for the first time, what kind of impressions are you getting from this? Were you hooked immediately?
Well, back then, again, you didn't have the resources you do now to investigate more.
Right.
What are these teams? What's going on exactly?
Right.
But in late 2015, I kind of stumbled upon something online, and I started watching all these videos about it. It looked pretty awesome. So the 2016 season was about to start. So, and I was actually really happy to learn that they were going to broadcast a few games that I would be able to see.
Yeah, I've loved. That's where I found it too, on FS2. I think was where I found them.
Yep. I've later expanded my my cable to get more games, but since I've got the Watch AFL app, I watch every game on there.
Yeah, that's.
But
that's
I still remember my very first game that I ever watched in its entirety. That was the Swans and Magpies. I remember them talking about Buddy a lot. I had no idea who that was, but that's
and now
but he looked pretty good, So,
I've told my kids when I've had a game on in my classroom before school and they've seen him, I said, see him wearing 23? He's kind of the LeBron of this game. That's kind of who he is. That's maybe why he has that number, and maybe why LeBron has his number.
Very apt.
Yeah,
very apt. Yes.
Very much so. Yes, it has been a dynamite player for a long time. Now, so your first game you said was the Pies and the Swans.
Yep.
So, how is it that you ended up being a Bulldogs fan then? What led you down the path to becoming a Bulldogs fan?
Well, right away when I started following the AFL, there were some teams I liked and some I didn't. I really wasn't feeling the striped uniforms so much. So Collingwood, Hawthorn, North Melbourne, and your Cats were not on top of my list. But there were so few games being broadcast. It was hit and miss. So I only saw a few Bulldogs games during the season in 2016.
Okay.
And everybody was saying they were getting better, but had no real chance. They were too young, too injured. At the end of the season, they were in 7th place, and no one had ever won the premiership from that low on the finals ladder. But then when the finals began, they broadcast every single game. So I was able to kind of follow them. And
right up until the grand final, though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, they first they beat the high flying Eagles at home. Nobody thought that was going to happen. Then they knocked off the 3-time champion Hawks. They ruined their four-peat, of premierships. Then they defeated the Giants at home in what's probably still the greatest game of footy I've ever seen. And they qualified for the grand final. Their style of play was faster and fiercer than any other team I'd ever seen. Liam Pickin, they call him Mr. September, and there's a good reason. He was just something to behold.
Yeah.
And it's been 62 years since the last time they won the premiership. That seems ridiculous.
When you think about that, when there are 18 teams in the competition, but you've added 2 fairly recently. So you had prior to that 16.
Right.
Footscray was in there, and but it was there weren't that many teams to occupy that 62-year span. I mean, you would think that the old story about even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while would have applied here. Of course, I was at least alive when the Cleveland Browns won a championship in '64. I'm sure I was in bed. I was a year old at the time, but it happened in my lifetime, and I'm not sure if it'll ever happen again. They can't get out of their own way.
I mean, I'd seen a lot more Swans games during the year, during the season, so they were a lot more familiar to me. But somehow the doggies they won, and I was it was such a romantic story, I was like, they really should make a movie about it. And then after, this was, I was kind of, happy for him, but not, didn't have my heart in it so much. But after the victory on the podium, Coach Beveridge gives Bob Murphy his premiership medal, and the crowd went insane. I mean, just like wow, And I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I didn't even know who Bob was back then.
Right.
But the reaction really made me curious. So again, I went back to YouTube and started watching everything I could about the Bulldogs. I watched a really old documentary called The Year of the Dogs from like 1990, detailing 1996 season, released in '97, I believe.
Okay.
How these fans would just stick with this club through the worst, horrible losing game after game, horrible seasons. I learned that the club almost folded several times, and it was saved by the courageous acts of a few people and hard work of a lot of people. I mean, people were literally collecting change on the streets to save this football club.
Wow.
They loved so much.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah, they call it the Great Fight Back of '89, and this was like the 30th anniversary of it. So they had like a special thing this year on it too.
Okay.
So, and just watching all this and just learning more and more about this club and the people and how much it meant to them. I don't know if I've ever loved anything as much as some of these people love this club. It just kind of worked its way into my heart, actually, I've got the red, white, and blue, and the logo and the team song are, in my opinion, probably the best in the whole competition. But it's very subjective, of course.
Well, yeah, I was listening to another podcast just last night, and they were breaking down their top 5 Guernseys. And I don't remember who they said. I don't think I remember who they said was number 1. But I don't remember who they even had in the top 5. Quite frankly, I'll have to go back and listen to it again. But
I saw one of those, and I just remembered because the Bulldogs won that one. But there's, again, very subjective.
Yeah, absolutely. Was that the AFL Obsessed? Was that the one? That podcast?
Honestly, don't remember.
Yeah, there's a young lady out of New York City that's doing a podcast also that I'm going to mention in closing on here. But she had done the top 5 on there. So you have done something that I'm very envious of. You've actually made journeys to Australia. And how many times have you gone since you've become a fan to go watch games, to interact with just the whole gamut of things that are going on with the game there?
Just the one time.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, initially it was a really vague thought I'd never thought would happen. Like I said, I'm a bit bigger than the average person, so flying is definitely not my favorite thing. And a 30-plus hour travel, on planes just didn't seem like something I wanted to do. Slowly, the desire kind of grew, and it eventually became more of like a pilgrimage that I need to take, if you understand.
Right.
What I mean? And so in June, this past year of 2019, I finally made the trip. And the flights were no fun, but the 2 weeks I spent there in Australia were so totally worth it. And like I said, I originally thought of it as a once-in-a-lifetime trip, but I just really can't wait to go back.
Terrific. Yeah, I'm hoping to get there someday, but you might have seen the little videos on Instagram. You can probably tell that I could audition to be Santa Claus. So the whole traveling bit, not something I'd be real excited about as well. So you've made one trip to Australia, and you said you spent 2 weeks there.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
2 weeks.
And how many? You visited the training grounds, the kennel, which I didn't realize that was the name for it. I hadn't run across that one before. And I mentioned back in the second episode that I argued, being a 50-year U.S. sports fan, if you will, I thought that the camaraderie, the relationship between the fans and the players seemed to be much closer in the AFL. Did you find that to be the case as well?
Absolutely. But I have to say that when I first arrived at the kennel, and every club, I think, has their own nickname. I know, like the Bombers have the Hangar.
Right.
For one thing. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, the Cattery. I'm not.
Yeah.
And whatnot. But when I first arrived at the kennel, it was almost like this feeling of stepping on hallowed ground. There's a statue outside of E.J. Whitten, Mr. Football himself, and it kind of instills a certain reverence before you even enter. And I was half expecting to be turned away by security guards, but instead these cool glass doors with Bulldogs logo and lettering on it just kind of slide open, and there's a really lovely cafe inside lined with trophy cases and memorabilia, and it's called Barker's Cafe, which I think is pretty awesome, and
makes sense.
It's always full of diehard supporters, and many of the players often eat breakfast or lunch in there. Even more, coming for coffee, as people in Melbourne take this beverage extremely seriously. They kind of consider themselves much more sophisticated than any other city, Europe or Seattle or anything like that. Well, when it comes to coffee.
I am a coffeeholic, so you have just confirmed that I need to make this trip.
Yeah, and I quickly learned that to post up next to I always grab the table or seat right next to the coffee counter, so that way I could just strike up conversations with many of the players while they waited for their order.
That's a smart move.
Yeah, it took me 10 minutes, but I was like, this is the place to be.
Yeah.
It was pretty difficult keeping my excitement in check. Here's these stars from TV. That
right.
And revere. And then they're right there. So.
And you had done your homework. You knew who they were. You weren't like, okay, I think I know who that guy was. I lived in Augusta, Georgia for a couple of years, and I worked in the restaurant business. And I was there during the Masters, and one of we had players that would come in all the time. Fuzzy Zeller would come in all the time, and Billy Casper, who won the Masters, I don't remember what year, a couple times back in the 50s or 60s, I believe. He came in, and I asked him how his dinner was as he was leaving. He said, I said, Mr. Casper, how was your dinner? He said, it was great. He says, you knew who I am? I said, well, your picture's been right behind me for the last 2 years, so I know exactly who you are. So it's great. This sounds like such a neat event to just, be able to see them kind of where they're a little bit relaxed. I mean, that had to be... Yeah.
But also when I was there, that which I didn't realize so much at the time, but turned out to be a huge benefit, was that the VFL and the VFLW seasons were also going on. And for these games, they use much smaller capacity stadiums. It almost feels like a high school football game here in the States. But as you know, the VFL players move up and down from the AFL as needed, due to injuries or performance or what have you. So I knew almost all the players on the VFL squad, and same's true for the VFLW players. And even if they weren't playing, they were just hanging around the field, either coaching or just sitting around, in the stands. And in between quarters at these games, you can actually walk out onto the field and stand right amongst the players and the coaches and listen in. And you see them moving the magnets around on the board and telling them, you're doing good, or you need to get on this guy more, or and many of these coaches are former Bulldogs greats too,
exactly.
Like legendary
Makes
players.
Sense. Yeah.
I mean, I got their footy cards, for goodness sake, and here I'm standing next to them as they're instructing the next generation.
That's very cool. Yeah, I mentioned it. I had done a kind of like a memorabilia trade with a Cats fan back in Geelong, and I sent him a binder with about 850 baseball and football cards, a lot of Browns and Indians because he's a Browns and Indians fan, but then also a lot of Major League Baseball and NFL Hall of Famers and such. It was kind of a labor of love to go through and put this binder together for him to send there. My wife almost killed me when she found out how much it was going to be to mail this box because, 14-pound box going to Australia was not cheap.
I know.
So,
Can I just tell you real quick something that really surprised me though?
Absolutely.
More so than even as much as because it was so awesome meeting the players was meeting these the diehard supporters. I mean, who are there all the time and come to every practice. Go to there's their club. They almost live there. And even from the documentaries that I mentioned earlier that I studied on the doggies, I met some of the fans or some of the people in those documentaries. I mean, just
cool.
A lot of, within the group, celebrities, and I was kind of afraid that I'd be seen as like an outsider, that it didn't belong, some foreign pretender who just jumped on the bandwagon, but it could not have been nicer. And I was, and I still am, overwhelmed by the welcome I received from these people. I mean, every time I returned to the kennel or went to a stadium or some other event, people would come up and ask me if I was that American they'd seen in the Facebook Bulldogs groups.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I mean, some people they even wanted selfies with me, and a lot of them brought presents, pennants and banners and it's just amazing. I'm just so humbled and at the same time, elated by their generosity. If I ever had any doubt that I picked the wrong team, but after meeting these people, and the Western Bulldogs really feels like my club now, and
that's terrific.
I'm, so happy that I made the trip and met these people.
Now, when you were there, you first of all, when you're out there and you're interacting with the players, were they surprised to see somebody sitting in their cafe that does not have an Australian accent, and they're wondering, okay, this is a little peculiar here. Who is this gentleman?
It pretty much happened everywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just one or two words out of me, and suddenly they knew I wasn't from around there. So I guess my American accent's pretty strong.
That had to be, that's one of the things that I'm again, someday when I hope to get there, you are doing what I hope to someday be able to do myself. So I'm a little envious of you. Your first game that you went to, who were they playing? When, where were they playing? And just what was it like when you were they at the MCG for this game?
Well, actually, the Doggies play at Marvel Stadium.
Oh, that's right, they do. Yes.
Or used to be called Docklands or Doglands, as we prefer to call it. But But actually, my first game was round 13 of 2019, and it wasn't even a Bulldogs game. I planned my trip around the Bulldogs schedule, or fixture as they call it, but I still wanted to see as many games as possible. So my first game in person was actually a Hawks and Bombers match on a Friday night, and the Bulldogs played the day after that. I'd actually walked around the stadium and peeked through the gates the day before. I just couldn't, contain my curiosity.
You're there. You're excited. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and again, no security shooing me away or anything. I just walked. I just peeked right in. But I'd met some Bulldogs, a Bulldog supporter online, and her and her sister, who happened to be a Bombers fan, were going to the game, so we decided to go together. So I kind of walked in with friends. My seat was way up high in the ceiling. I mean, that's almost as high as you can get. And I sat there in my red, white, and blue Doggies colors in the sea of brown and gold and red and black, for the other two teams.
And did they look at you strangely, or did they like, oh yeah, he's okay, he's not going against either one of us here, so we're going to cut him some slack?
I got a lot of, hey, aren't you here a day early? I got a lot of those questions from people who work there and other fans. Yeah.
I did the same kind of thing at I went to a Vikings and Redskins game wearing a Browns jersey, and got a lot of strange looks at that game. Yeah.
I remember a guy at the bus, the tram stop on the street told me, nah, mate, you got to change teams. They're no good, And when we actually made the finals last year, I keep thinking about that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And who was he barracking for? Did he say?
He didn't say. It turns out they don't wear, unless it's game day, they don't seem to wear a lot of their colors around town like Americans do.
Wow.
So they're a little more reserved then.
Which is really surprising because, I'm sure the same thing happens with you with the Bulldogs and their shop online. I mean, they have hundreds and hundreds of things that they're selling, with the Cats logo, and I'm sure with the Bulls logo on there as well. All sorts of different shirts and little accoutrements and knickknacks and that type of thing. That
there tons of stuff, and there are people who ate up with it like I am, who wear everything that you can at any given moment. But
right.
By and large, people were just going about their days, not thinking about the footy. When I saw them on the street. So. I got to tell you that the stadium looks huge on TV. Sitting up there looking around, felt incredibly huge, and I was really surprised how cold it gets in there. So when you go, dress in layers.
Okay. Well, yeah, that had to be. Let's see, round 13. You were there June, July.
Yeah, June. So
okay.
Dead of winter for them.
Yeah.
And as the evening went on, it got really cold in there. One thing that I didn't realize that that was pretty unique, but by going there as opposed to seeing it on TV, was the running commentary by the fans around you, and it's all filtered through that unique and brutally honest Aussie sense of humor. So. And by coincidence, it was actually umpire Razor Ray's 300th game.
Okay.
But none of the fans that sat around me were too impressed by it. So and I could hear what they were saying. So how you hate umpires. So
yeah, I don't think umpires are going to make any friends at any time.
Yeah,
even the
thankless job.
Yeah. Even the couple that had the proposal out at the middle of the field at one of the games, I'm sure there was somebody up in the stands booing them.
I saw some negative comments on it. I thought it was cute, but I've definitely read some. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure there was somebody that had one too many beers that said, "What are you doing out there? Go somewhere else and do this." But yeah. So
all in all, it was very. I never felt like I was in in a dangerous situation or anything like that.
Right.
As rowdy as sports fans can get, it was all positive, really.
So you get to your first Bulldogs game, and I'm assuming, as you said, you worked around their schedule, and it sounds like you've done the same thing that I have done. You became a fan in 2015, 2016. I'm sure there were several times during the 2017, 2018 season you sat down with the fixture and said, okay, where can I get the most bang for my buck and go into games? And looking at kayak and tracking how much the flights would cost, that type of thing. Did you make it that far as well to actually look at like what the cost the flights would be? Because I've done that, knowing full well I'm not going anywhere.
It was more about there was bye weeks going on around that time too.
Right.
So it was more about just making sure I was in town for 2 back-to-back Bulldogs games when they weren't traveling out across the country.
I've done the same thing already.
Yeah.
Several
that
times.
That was the first consideration, absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely. So you get to the first Bulldogs game, and tell us, as American fans who've only seen it on television, tell us what your experiences were like. Because I've seen pictures of you. You were down with the cheer squad, if I'm not mistaken. You were down holding the banner.
Yeah, I know. It's incredible. I was again online, and I'd asked, how do you get to sit with the cheer squad? And one of the cheer squad members said, "Well, just come see us, and if you want to, you can help us raise the banner, that they run through out on the field, and you can sit up front, in the front row." And I'm like, I'm in, absolutely. What an honor,
Twist my arm.
Yeah. Is this, you're not kidding, right? And again, so overwhelmed by the welcome I received from the Bulldogs faithful, or Bulldogs family, as I like to call them.
And I think it's fair to say that if you had chosen to be a Dockers fan, or I had chosen to be a Magpies fan, or Swans, or whomever, I'm sure that the people that are passionate about those clubs would be welcoming you or I, with, if we were fans of them, with open arms as well. I mean, this isn't exclusive to these two clubs. I think this is just how they
really
are.
can't speak to that, but I would imagine so. I would hope so. Absolutely. Yeah.
I would be shocked if it wasn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if it wasn't. Because
again, everything here is just my personal experience.
Right, right.
I see everything through red, white, and blue goggles anymore.
There you go. There you go. So you're out there, and I like that you made that connection there, because I actually have become friends on Facebook with Catman. So
awesome, yeah. So I always like seeing him in the stands.
So there, maybe if I do end up going that way, there's my contact, and say, hey, can you throw me a bone here? Help me out. How do I make this work? But you're out there. Now, did you go to the stands first, or did you go, for warm-ups?
Well, I went inside, and then I just you meet up with the cheer squad people. They sit right behind the goals.
Right.
Away at the away goals and away games, and home goal at the home games, of course. And then it was just they give you this frock and they take you out and everything. But it's just so, my mind was just overloaded, because the day before I had taken a guided tour of the MCG, which was just amazing. I didn't actually get to see a game there, but I did a very extensive guided tour. And and I was actually out on the grass, up in the stands. I was in the Collingwood dressing rooms that I'd seen on TV, in the broadcast booths, and everywhere in between.
Oh, very cool.
But after, and you have to go under the MCG, is the Sports Museum, I think it's called. But in there is the AFL Hall of Fame. And there were so many legendary photos of Bulldog players that I like: E.J. Witten, Chris Grant, Jono, Scotty West, to name a few. And I knew them all from collecting the footy cards, like a little kid that I am. And then the very next day, who was also part of the cheer squad? Scott West. I just seen his photo at the Hall of Fame. And then now I'm hanging out with him, getting selfies.
Outstanding.
And doing, arts and crafts, basically, although a huge banner, right?
Yeah.
So it's it's all kind of a blur. There's pictures and stuff, but I just remember trying to concentrate really hard on not screwing up carrying the banner or raising it. Somehow the field and stands looked even larger from out there, But then the team song started playing, the crowd was yelling and cheering. The players ran right past me through the banner.
Yeah.
There might have been some fireworks of some kind. I'm not sure. There was just like a lot of blinking lights, and I thought there was smoke. That's
that might have been your nerves.
It might have been my brain. I don't know. Too much input and emotion all at once. Really, it's just so surreal is probably the best word I can come up with.
That was
for it. But
I had jotted down a couple things. As far as what your impressions were, was it jubilation or kid in a candy store? Or were you kind of like at a point where you were almost moved to tears, because this is kind of a dream come true kind of a moment here that you're having?
I don't I never actually dreamed that I would do what I was doing, so it was and again I was I'm getting to be an old man, and I'm acting like a little kid, so it was the emotional juxtaposition inside myself is a bit much, but I guess I did okay. They asked me to come to the kennel later that week to help them build next week's banner, which I was absolutely honored to do. And it turned out the banner was for Bulldogs captain Eastonwood's 150th game, too. So that was kind of extra special.
Outstanding.
Now, I keep going on about this, and I know it probably sounds like I'm bragging, but actually the following weekend, my buddy, my mate, as they were called in Australia, had actually written the Bulldogs club about telling him what a huge Bulldogs fan from America I am. And both he and I got to be part of the honor game the following weekend. So once again, out on the field, this time holding a little flag as the team took the field right past me, So it's just really so much more that happened that I could ever have hoped for when I planned the trip. Just every day I started just waking up, and every day I saying, wonder what kind of amazing thing is going to happen today. And there was never a dull day. Something amazing didn't happen.
It is. It's so impressive to hear all of this, and I like I said, I'm trying not to be envious. I feel like I'm part of that old movie Seven right here, because I'm one of the seven deadly sins here now. But it's I'm glad to be able to be talking to you about this, because it's something that down the road I hope to be able to do, and footy fans from the U.S. I hope they get an opportunity to do it as well. So
like I said, it's the doggies have almost become like a religion for me, and this was pretty much a pilgrimage, and it had that kind of almost that kind of importance to me, So it was just, again, I'm almost not believing, remembering these things. I'm believing all the things that actually happened. So yeah.
So you shared with me some photographs of your gear, your Bulldogs gear. What was the first item that you picked up before you went to Australia?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank my wife for letting me decorate the entire house in red, white, and blue.
Wow!
And because it's definitely bled out from the office out into the living room and all over the place, So I tell her, hey, I could have been a Giants fan. This could all be orange, So.
Oh, I was thinking New York Giants. I was thinking it's still red, white, and blue. Okay, it could be orange. Yeah,
Greater Western Sydney.
Yes. Yeah, it's.
So, if I had to guess, I think the first thing I ever got was a training jersey from the Bulldogs.
Okay.
I kind of like the sleeves. It's just I don't look real good. My muscles aren't what they used to be. So
yeah.
With the sleeveless. Yeah.
I definitely get it. I have one. I haven't worn it in public yet. I need to lose a few more pounds before I can wear it. But I teach school, and we every once in a while we'll have wear your the jersey of your favorite team, and I'm gonna someday go in there rocking it sleeveless at school and just say, there you go, guys. I'm charging full price for the gun show.
Yeah, they're definitely tailored for the more athletically built. Yes.
Well,
the field on field jerseys. Yeah.
Look at the bright side, though. You're not putting on a Cats jersey. Yeah,
I guess horizontal stripes.
My hoops are definitely hoops. So,
but then so much more. Once I discovered the Bulldogs shop, after I became a member, especially, you get 10% off.
Right.
And there's one set shipping fee. So the more you pile on, the more you save on shipping. Basically, so I started just shopping for a lot of stuff on the online shop for the Bulldogs, and then the footy cards started coming through eBay, and I just started collecting those to learn more about the club's long history.
Okay.
And I was getting some. My mailman actually asked me if I had family in Australia, but and like you mentioned, I really try not to think about what I've spent on shipping.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't done any of the cards yet. I'm still putting my youngest through college right now, so that sort of thing is going to be off in the future.
Yeah, it starts small and it just it escalates. You know how it is.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I got to kind of tell you, when I went over there, the only thing I was specifically looking to buy was a collectible Bulldogs cologne bottle that I'd seen advertised. Didn't care what it smelled like, but it was basically a little glass bottle that had the Guernsey draped over the top of it.
Okay.
So the bottle kind of looked like a little torso with this uniform on it, and they had all these different teams. And I actually had to go to 3 or 4 different stores to find one where I finally found the Bulldogs. But
so how was the cologne?
I still wear it. It probably smells better because it's Bulldogs than what it really does. But I did bring a second suitcase with me. I actually packed one suitcase inside the other going over there because I really anticipated doing quite a bit of shopping at the kennel. And good thing they were both really full on the trip home, and I even had to leave a pair of boots behind just to make it under the weight.
I did that. I did that same kind of thing in high school. We went on a trip with my German class to Germany. And this was in 1980, so this would never be allowed today. I took along one of those little nylon, little nylon bags. It's the size of a suitcase, but I put it inside my bag. So on the way home, I put all of my clothes in that. And I was an avid beer can collector when I was a kid. I brought back an entire suitcase full of empty beer cans from Germany. Something that
That's amazing.
I would never be allowed to do today. I would never get one of them on the plane, but I brought back a whole suitcase of them. And I hope my German teacher is not listening, because she would not like to know how they ended up being empty.
I think we all know.
Yes, yeah. I probably shouldn't say that, being a teacher myself right now.
So we were all
yeah.
students at one time, weren't we?
So. Yes, I know. And some of my students are actually listening to this, so I'm sure I will hear about it at school. So getting back to the whole thing at the stadium, and I've seen them advertised, and the pictures, and I've looked at some of the places online, but you got to tell me about the meat pies. What are they? What makes them so wonderful? They look great. Never had one before.
It's pretty much, our hamburger or hot dog. It's kind of their thing, That's okay. Australian as it gets, and it makes me so sad that I can't get them in the store here. I was pretty busy at the stadiums when I was at the game, so I didn't really have a whole time to eat a lot at the stadiums. But I would go to the grocery store, and I lived off of the meat pies in the hotel room or in my little kitchenette. And I think I ate like 18 at least, when I was there. And I've learned to make them myself here at home, and they're pretty good. But they'll do when the cravings hit. I gotta tell you, when I was there, and there's a huge rivalry between Melbourne and Sydney. So all my Melbourne friends, I'm sorry, but I'm actually going to talk about something great that happened in Sydney. When I was there, I took a short trip up to see Buddy play his 299th game against his old team Hawthorn at the SCG, the Sydney Cricket Ground. Right. And that was awesome. Again, extremely cold. That was an outside game, but extremely cold. But the most memorable thing was going to the legendary Harry's Cafe, The Wheels, I think it's called. I'd seen it mentioned on several TV shows before going, and it's what they serve there. It's called the Tiger Pie, and it's basically a flaky meat pie, delicious on its own. Then they top it with mashed potatoes, mushy peas, and gravy, and it's just amazing to walk around, and just delicious. So
it's a little bit like a shepherd's pie in a way.
But it's stacked on top of each other. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
If you can find it on YouTube. I mean, Anthony Bourdain and several other shows have visited that. It's very iconic, and it's full of pictures of famous actors and other people who've been there. It's the place to go in Sydney for a snack. So, another Australian staple is the sausage roll, and they're almost as popular as the meat pies, I think. And believe it or not, my favorite ones I got at a 7-Eleven. Wow. I'm sure there's a lot of Australian mothers who would beat me about the head and ears for saying that, but and I'm sure theirs are better. But just from my personal experience, I was really surprised how good the one at 7-Eleven was.
Well, they should have invited you to their house to have one of theirs then.
Well, I actually have gotten a lot of invites since then, but at the time, 7-Eleven was where it was at.
You do what you're accustomed to, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said that while you were there, you met up with a lot of the players from the AFLW as well. What kind of a reaction did you get from them, really, when they figured out that you had made this pilgrimage, as you put it, and I think that's a great word for it, to actually come watch their game on their grounds? I mean, were they, because you're not a celebrity who is going to be hopping on their own private jet or a first class ticket to jet off to Australia whenever they want to go watch a game. You're somebody that had to work and set aside in order to do this kind of lifelong dream, if you will, or this pilgrimage. So how did they react to you making that the choice to come and see them?
Well, it was actually, we just had short conversations with some of the players I met, from the AFLW. I remember meeting Lauren Spark, Eleanor Brown, Izzy Huntington, Bonnie Toogood, Ellie Blackburn, and Kirsty Lamb. All lovely ladies, and I guess they seemed to think it was pretty cool that I'd made the trip. But Mostly, we talked about, oh, you're from America? That's cool. I've been there. I want to go there. And but mostly we talked about other things, like and depending on who I talked to,
Right,
whatever,
right.
how's the injury, or how's school, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just awesome.
Fantastic. And you got a chance, you know, while you were there, the at the games and that sort of thing, when you were at the kennel, did you get any kind of an opportunity to have any kind of deep conversations with any of the male players, the AFL players as well, or was that going to be more in passing, that type of thing?
A little of both. I mean, again, they have what are called open training sessions. They
Right,
also have
right.
closed ones, but they have open training where you can basically go and hang out at the fence and watch them train, and then they basically do a meet and greet after. Lots of handshakes and selfies, that sort of thing. Yeah, I was trying not to push the little kids out of the way in my excitement, but I pretty much saw the entire team in person, as they went
Mm-hmm.
by, and shook a lot of their hands. But then again, back inside Barker's Cafe, a lot of them would be eating lunch just feet away from me. Of course, I never wanted to bother them at this point. I didn't want to be that guy.
Right, right.
I did talk with Chris Grant, Tom Liberatore, a hell of a character, Fletcher Roberts, Mitch Wallace. I had really nice conversation with Josh Shackey, Hayden Crozier, Ruben William, who's played for the VFL, and Toby McLean, and of course I mentioned Scott West before from the cheer squad.
Right, right.
So I also went to a taping of a Footy internet show when I was there that happened to be a Bulldogs episode.
Okay.
And I spent a couple hours with Bailey Smith and Easton Wood, and only one-on-one conversation, maybe 2 or 3 minutes each. But
Right.
I'll tell you, they both are a lot taller in real life. I'm not used to being the shortest one in a photograph, but they're big guys.
I am.
But it was just so awesome of them to give of their time like that, and it's such a nice way for the fans to interact. So that was a lot of fun.
I think that's terrific. So now that you're back, are you planning your next trip? Are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to do it this year as much as I like to, but
Yeah.
I'm stuck somewhere between my bucket list and my bank account, and
Right.
it's just who isn't
Yeah.
really? So
No, absolutely. Now, are you?
I definitely want to go again.
Yeah. Are you keeping in touch with some people in Australia that you met while you were there?
Oh yeah, quite a few actually. Mostly fellow supporters, of course, and messaging can get pretty frantic during live games. But a few players also usually respond to my messages and comments on social media, which still is pretty awesome every time that happens.
Yeah.
Well, I also run a little Facebook group called Western Bulldogs International Fans, so that keeps me very connected to the club, and I see what's going on, or at least as connected as I can be, 15 time zones away.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it's I think it's 15. Yeah. It's because I've been trying to time my releases so they come out at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. So in case somebody,
Yeah, I'm not sure, how daylight savings time factors into it exactly,
Right,
but
right.
it's always a strange time to figure out.
So when you're watching games back home in Florida, and you've got the Watch AFL app, I think is one of the greatest inventions ever. I have sent probably a half dozen emails to them directly saying, how come you do not yet have a Roku page or a Roku
Or
channel?
Smart TV would be awesome, right?
That'd be great too. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm running it through my Chromecast to my TV, and sometimes that will lag on me. But when you sit down to watch a game, I'm sure you probably try to watch as many of them live as you possibly can.
Doggies games almost always. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
usually up in the middle of the night. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm the same way. Do you have a group of friends that you have brought into as footy fans there in Florida to watch with you, or are you the Lone Ranger like I am?
I guess I'm the main herald of it, but I have a couple of buddies of mine who Barrack for the doggies. I know we don't say root.
Yeah.
And
I addressed that. I addressed that last week.
exactly. And we watch a lot of the games together. Obviously, when we get together, it's a delayed broadcast usually because a lot of times it's 3 or 5 o'clock in the morning when it's live.
Right.
So.
Right.
But they do come over and watch the grand finals with me live, and that starts at midnight, usually our time or so. And
Yes.
so that takes a bit of dedication. I appreciate them, and they know the game really well, and it's a lot more fun in a group for sure. I also have to claim a friend of mine from school when I lived in New York, and her husband. She got interested in the NFL after seeing my posts and photos from Australia, and I believe he bought her a Bulldogs International membership for her birthday. So now she can
terrific.
watch every game on the Watch AFL app also.
Yeah,
They obviously don't come over much, but we do sometimes have late night watch parties together too. So
yeah, I'm thinking that I might try to actually do like a live stream of an episode of my podcast watching a game this year just to see how that goes. I'll have to
that'd be fun.
maybe try to do that during a AFLW game just to try it out initially. So living in Florida, the game has started to make some entrances into the United States. The USAFL is in a number of places around the country. I know there are a number of teams in Florida, in Jacksonville, in Tampa. I think
that they're up to 40-something, 46, 47 teams in the States already, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yep.
Now, do you
both
get
men and women?
Yeah. Do you get a chance to get out and watch them at all, or?
I'm actually a supporting member of the new Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks, who just basically formed this year, I think, or end of last year, and I did actually go to see him play a bit at the USAFL Nationals that were held in Florida this year, which was just an amazing event. So many teams from all over the country, just footy everywhere, on full-size fields.
Right. It was fun to watch, but it was a little, and I'm going to call out ESPN here, and I apologize for that, ESPN, but it would have been nice had you bothered to rent a bucket truck to actually put a camera in the air so we could actually see the field, because having just a camera on the edge of the oval did not do us a whole lot of good in terms of seeing what action was actually going on.
Right. Especially on a field that huge.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there. I was just walking or standing again next to the players and having a great time. But also, while I was there, I also got to meet Mr. American Pie himself, Mason Cox, who plays for Collingwood.
Yeah.
As well as AFLW All-Star Aaron Phillips, possibly the greatest female footy player ever, and also Danny Marshall, the first American who ever got signed to an AFLW contract, to my Western Bulldogs, no less. So that was really a thrill.
Now, and she's playing. Yeah, she's playing at this point in time then, because you had mentioned her earlier that she was going to be over there.
Yep, yeah. From the photos I've seen, she's training really hard with, and actually they just played a practice game against your Cats this weekend. So
I haven't read up on that. I'll have to see how that went.
I believe the first round is in like
next
2
week,
weeks, maybe
the 7th, I think. Yeah.
Yep, the week of the 7th and 8th that weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Cats played around 3:00 in the morning our time. So I'll be honest, I'm going to watch that one on delay. So
I'm going to try to stay up. But
yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, if it's an 11:00 game, I can do that. But if I have a hard time with the games that start at 2 or 3. It just screws up my whole day, especially during this.
Oh yeah.
Especially during the school year. Yeah, because
Yes.
I'm at school at 6 every morning, so I'll
keeping down a day job and being a footy fan is not the easiest combination.
Yeah,
sure.
like I said, I am definitely the Lone Ranger, but I have a couple of coworkers who are interested. I've got one friend who is I'm trying to get to come over to watch a game. He wants to come over. He's had a couple things that have come up, hasn't been able to make it, and I put out a post online saying, okay, well, I'm bringing somebody over to watch their first game. I said, of the last 3 seasons, what game should they watch? And we kind of came to the consensus that it's probably going to be the Pies-Eagles grand final from a couple of years ago, just because that turned out to be a really good game, and you can kind of see the spectacle of what the game was all about as well.
Yeah, and what an ending that had. That was
exactly.
Heartbreaking exhilaration.
Exactly.
It was, everything. Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
Yeah. Nick Costa, if you're listening to this, I am sorry that I brought that up. So if you're, hopefully there are people who are just thinking about dipping their toe into becoming a footy fan. So if they're listening, what kind of a message do you have for them, or what kind of advice do you have for them regarding becoming a fan of this game? Sell us on the game of footy.
Well, first of all, there's always, every time I show the game to somebody, I always get, there's 2 questions or topics that come up. And the first of all is, no, it's not rugby.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Secondly, yes, the shorts are, pretty short, at least compared to soccer and basketball uniforms. So those always seem to come up. But seriously, if you like any kind of sport at all, give this a try. At first it may seem strange and chaotic, but it's quite easy to follow once you understand the basics. Probably the most crucial being, what exactly is a mark and what happens when you mark the ball. You get that, and everything else pretty much falls into place. I'd suggest watching a few videos on YouTube to learn the rules. There's a video called "What is AFL?" that comes to mind. Also, a great one is called NIN, N-I-N-H, I believe. NIN explains Australian rules football, and that's just really great way to learn the rules.
That's not one I've heard of.
Yeah, check it out. I mean, and then if you, if you give this a try and just watch a few more videos, pretty soon you'll see that, these are some of the greatest athletes in the world. And the game itself is hard, it's fast, and beautiful at the same time. But most importantly, it's a lot of fun to watch. So it's pretty much a non-stop game. That's one of the things that one of the disparities between the AFL and the NFL is that the NFL stuff happens for 3 seconds, and then there's nothing for 40 seconds. And then 3 seconds. And what I really love is that there's no commercials during the entire quarter to stop the game. And if there's like a referee call, even the goal reviews or any calls by the referee, it's extremely fast, and it seems to happen not nearly as often as it does in the NHL. There seems to be more and more yellow flags all the time anymore in the NFL.
Yes.
So
I think they're getting paid by the flag.
Yeah. So, I mean, the flow, just the back and forth flow, it's not unlike ice hockey. It's the speed and the intensity and the fierceness of that, obviously on a much, much bigger field, But, again, if you're interested at all, give it a chance. I think you might get hooked on it like a lot of us other people have.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I agree with you completely on that. Well, sir, I think we've covered quite a bit here tonight, and I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule and us having a little bit of a technical glitch, actually 2 technical glitches that I think we've overcome the second one. If you're just tuning in, my guest is Frode Jurnhart from Florida, who is a huge Bulldogs fan. And Frode, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I know you were a little apprehensive about this. I've had a blast. I hope you've enjoyed this a little bit as well.
It's been a blast. There's like the Shrek and Donkey. It's getting them to shut up. It's the hard part once I get talking about footy. So
well, we're definitely going to be talking more after this is published as well. So, and after this is out. So this is not certainly the end of it at all. And I haven't looked yet to see what round the Cats and the Dogs play, but I'm sure there'll be some discussion going on that week as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
civil, I'm sure.
Yeah, it will be, because I don't have a, and I think you and I are both kind of in the same boat, that we came into this game so late in life that we don't have that intrinsic built-in hatred for another team.
Yes. The history of the hate. Yes.
I've been told that I'm not supposed to like Hawthorne. I've been told that by every Cats fan. You're not supposed to like Hawthorne. I said, you know what? I said, I can agree with you on that. I thought Ben Stratton was a complete chucklehead last year when he kept pinching Fantasia. I said, but I don't think I can hate the whole team for that. I certainly get it.
These clubs are so old. They've been around for over 100 years, almost all of them, and there's a lot of pin-up animosity.
Yes,
for sure.
Exactly. This has been generations of it, and as you said earlier, that what was it, 62 years? You said between cups.
Yeah, I mean, the Doggies have been around since 1883.
Right.
So there's a lot of history.
Yep. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight has been Frode Jurnhart. Frode, I cannot thank you enough. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. This has been episode 7 of A Yank on the Footy, and I hope that you will share this episode with your friends. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you've had a great time. And Frode, thanks very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too. It's been a blast.
You bet. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 7 of A Yank on the Footy. I hope that you've enjoyed my interview with Frode Jurnhart, the greatest Bulldogs fan in the eastern part of the United States. I had a lot of fun with this interview. We had a lot of laughs. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to give me a listen. Those of you who have listened since the beginning, I sincerely thank you for tuning in each week. I sincerely thank you for the kind words that you've given me on the Podbean app. I would love to hear more from other people on my Twitter page at yank_on, or on the Facebook page at A Yank on the Footy, or on Instagram, or by email at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear like I said earlier in the episode, your show ideas, because this is a game that we all love, that we all appreciate the dedication, the skill set it takes to play it, and you very likely have ideas for shows that I haven't even thought of yet. And ladies and gentlemen, I truly appreciate you listening. I do hope that you consider sharing this podcast with your friends, whether they be footy fans or not. I would love to get more fans of the game. We need more. Okay? And I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you for taking time to listen. I know there are lots of podcasts out there. I know there are lots of opportunities to consume other kinds of media, and I appreciate you tuning in each week to listen to what I have to say, and to listen to the people that I'm interviewing and what they have to say and their views on things. It really, really means a lot, and I cannot thank you enough. Now, that being said, ladies and gents, we may not be fans of the same clubs. We may not cheer for the same players. But deep down, we all have a love for a game. And that's the game of footy. And we've all got that in common. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for tuning in. And may your dribble kick never hit the post. I'll catch you later. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 7 of A Yank on the Footy. Before I wrap up, I would like to thank Mr. Joseph McDade for the use of some of his music, using a couple of pieces, Backplate and Elevation. You can find Mr. McDade's music at josephmcdade.com/music. Again, Mr. McDade, thank you very much. You've made some fantastic tunes. Ladies and gentlemen, again, this has been episode 7. You can find my podcast on your favorite podcast hosting site, as well as on the Podbean app, where you can leave me some comments if you choose to do so. I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you come back next week for our next episode. Thank you very much, and goodbye.